Hey, you guys, freedom is an awesome thing, and it comes at a great cost, a great price. And today we're going to be talking to Major Damon Friedman, the United States Air Force. He's got an amazing career. God has blessed this brother. He is commander of special tactics and training for the United States Air Force. And with that command, he carries with that a tremendous amount of experience. Though he's a young man, what God has allowed him to be involved in is, quite frankly, remarkable. And his heart now is to reach those that are going through post-traumatic stress syndrome, not only in the military, those who have come out of the military, but you'll see that his concern reaches even the trauma in your life. And so I love this guy. We stay in close contact. And I thank God, I can sleep better at night when men like Major Damon Friedman are at the helm of our nation's security. So pay close attention. I hope he ministers to you. I trust that he will. So, Damon, I want to just ask you, as we stand here today, it's kind of cool, awesome, because of how God has used you in a world that so many don't understand. Frankly, a lot of people don't want to understand the world that you traffic in, because you're a believer. But you, in a sense, the women and the men that you work with keep us safe at night. So, before we even get into that, I want to know how you came to know the one who keeps you safe at night. Tell us how you met up with the ultimate defender.
My story is very similar to a lot of people where you accept Jesus, but then there's really never any maturity.
Yeah.
And for me, I accepted the Lord back in my college years and just never grew. Yeah. And in some ways, maybe Jesus was just a means to an end. But I tried very hard to be the Christian, but without knowing who God really is, or better yet, how He wants us to live. I never lived the life that would be pleasing to God, and so I was.
So you knew about the Lord.
Yeah.
You could tell people the gospel.
Yeah.
But you lacked the power, the commitment?
Just really the commitment, the discipleship. I mean, there's a lot of people who learn about Jesus and they say, yeah, man, I want to know more about Jesus. Yeah, I accept Jesus, but then there's really no follow through, which is the failure.
They don't press on. They
Absolutely.
don't go on.
And I'll be honest with you, it's really been a big failure in the church today.
Yes.
It's really empowering Christians with the knowledge of, what does it mean to work out your salvation?
Amen.
What does it mean to live strong in the faith? What does it mean in Acts chapter 2, verse 42, when it says, hey, these are the 4 spiritual food groups, right?
Yeah.
Like we've got to read the Word, we've got to pray together, we've got to fellowship together. We need to break bread, and I mean, even communion is a lost art in the church today.
Yeah.
And so those kinds of
Good
things
point.
that really keep us connected. And so those are the things that were really missing throughout my life. But it was. I was going through different chapters, and I joined the military, and just like every other man in this world, I'm just looking for an identity. And like every other man in the world, we all want to be superheroes in somebody's eyes.
So are you saying, though, because I've heard this from a lot of guys, that they joined the military, they later found out that they were actually looking for a family. They were looking for a brotherhood and they didn't know it. So would you say that in some sense you did the same thing?
Absolutely.
You were looking for that some form of identity to find who's Damon, who am I?
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. And that's exactly, I joined the military for a couple of reasons. The first one is I'm from downtown Los Angeles. I was born literally in poor communities. I lived in the projects. I lived in 14 different places in the first 12 years. And you know what? I lived the American dream, where one day, I come from poverty, and then the next day I have an education, I have a job. And so this country really gave to me. So as a patriot, I wanted to give back. And that was the single factor. That was one of the things that I really wanted to do, was to give back to my country by signing on the bottom line.
This is awesome, but I'm curious. How did that, look, people just don't roll out of bed and become a lover of their country. Are you saying that because of the military, it changed your worldview? I'm not talking about the Jesus part yet.
Right.
But you began to appreciate freedom?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I would get up and I thought to myself, man, my mother, she used to work 18-hour days just to put rice and beans on the table. And our government set up programs back in the day that helped us to get on our feet. I got an education in this great country, and I had advantages, and being a Hispanic, I had advantages. And God really just blessed me and our family. And the fact of the matter is that I was set up for success. And so I just came to the point where I would get up and say, and be grateful that I was living the American dream.
Wow.
And I literally thought, man, what can I do to give back? And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna raise my right hand and I'm gonna take the oath and I'm gonna serve this great nation. I didn't know how long I was gonna serve, whether it was 4 years or it was gonna be 20 years.
And how old were you at that time?
At that time, I was 25.
Yeah.
25 at the time. I was a little bit later on than some of the guys and gals that signed on the bottom line, but it was a great decision, and I enjoy it, and I've been serving for about 15 years now.
So we'll jump back into the military side of it in a moment. The Damon growing up in LA, who was he? What was he? What was he like?
He was a punk.
A punk.
I mean, that's the only word that I could come up with.
What's a punk?
A punk was just a kid who I often kind of joke, but about it, because I see just the drastic difference between that kid and the man that I am today. I was the guy that would break in your house, take your wife's jewelry, and then take your car.
You were a punk.
I was a punk, and and I'll tell you that eventually I found myself in jail. And I remember in that cell, it wasn't a good experience. And so just to go from there and just to figure out, hey, I want to be a productive member of society, I have to make some changes.
Wow.
And that's all just part of God having his hand on me throughout my life.
Excellent. So you're 25, you're sworn in. What branch? Was it the Marine Corps at the time, Air Force at the time?
I joined the Marine Corps. The hoorah.
Absolutely. So you didn't mess around. You went for the Corps.
No, you asked me earlier on, why I joined. It's because I wanted to be a patriot, but like many other Americans, we want to be a part of something bigger.
Yeah.
We want to make an impact in life. And I just thought, what greater way can I make an impact than to sign and become a Marine?
Sure.
And I'll tell you, it was a life-changing experience.
I was never a Marine, but I grew up in the home of a Marine, so I feel like, I heard a little bit about that. I saw a little bit about that. But so now you're in the military. You have a knowledge of Jesus. But let's be honest, and I know there's a lot of young people that are watching this right now. That is even though I can say with some knowledge that the U.S. Marine Corps still is holding to some strong biblical values and some of the things that they instill within our Marines, that's quite a worldview experience change. I mean, you saw the underbelly of people. At the same time, you're supposed to be excited about courage and integrity and right faithfulness. What was that like? You knew who Jesus was, but you saw a world where his name was used differently?
Absolutely. And, to be honest with you, Jack, when I joined the Marine Corps, you go through an experience where you kind of get a new identity.
Yeah.
And a part of that new identity, throughout that process, and I'm just being honest with you, is that I kind of just lost keeping my eyes on God.
Of course.
And what was more important was being this war machine.
Yeah.
And I was being built for a purpose. I was being established as a purpose. I was being trained for a purpose, and that was to, close with and destroy the enemy.
Yeah.
That no matter what, as a Marine,
sure. And you're being trained to do that. You're being encouraged to do that.
Absolutely.
That's what they want you to do.
That's right. And we become invincible.
Yep.
And so that was really that was my purpose, was to be invincible, and regardless of all odds, we can overcome and be victorious.
Yeah,
so.
Isn't it amazing, a little insert here, isn't it amazing that, and we need this, that here we have a military that instills within its young people, you are invincible. No one can stop you. You are the best of the best. And this is true to a degree, but the point is to get them to believe it and give them everything they can to perform it on the spiritual side of things. It's such an amazing contradiction for us, because we're told in the Bible that we can't save ourselves, that we can't really make anything of our lives by human effort that's of spiritual value, but Jesus is the one that has done all this for us. And the strange, almost irony is that we become invincible. It might have been Whitefield that said we are invincible until Christ calls us home. Think of that, where we've got the government, which I'm excited about saying to our young people, you are the mighty warrior. But then when you become a Christian, there's quite a worldview change experience where the Lord says, I will make you victorious even in death. You are victorious. If a man dies believing in me, Jesus said, yet shall he live. And so now here you are in your career, and let's just keep going through. Walk us through issues, situations where Jesus is getting your attention.
So I was in the Marine Corps, and about 5.5 years, I ended up crossing over into Special Tactics. It's the Air Force's elite. Special Tactics are the air-to-ground experts. And over in my last unit was Recon, Second Force Recon.
Yeah.
I was a pathfinder for those guys. And I was really just enamored with the mission, anything dealing with the air-to-ground.
Sure.
And in Special Tactics, we're the ones who bring the heat to the enemy. We control all the
Meaning
aircraft.
you're bringing the
aircraft,
the munitions down to the place needed.
Absolutely. Any munition in the air, but we also control munitions even from the ground, artillery, ships, things like that. And we are the best of what we do. There's nobody else like that.
Yeah.
And I was really attracted to the mission set and the mission and the people and the resources, and so I crossed over into Special Tactics. And I've been serving there for about 10 years.
Yeah.
And throughout that process, I received pretty advanced training, some of the best training in the world.
Sure, thank God.
And I was deployed several times, twice to Afghanistan, twice to Iraq throughout my career. And that is where God captured my attention.
How's that? Tell me, how is it that Jesus is in Afghanistan and Iraq? How did that happen?
So just like multiple relationships in the military, guys are just really focused on the mission, focused on the war in Afghanistan, focused on the war in Iraq, focused on wherever that they're sent. And the fact of the matter is that there's a lot of bad guys out there that hate America, that will do everything and anything that they can to kill us, to destroy our nation. And so we are committed to ending that extreme terrorism. Yeah. And I just found myself praying a lot, even just for wars. Let me find these guys, kind of like seething.
To get the, forgive me for saying it this way, but to get the pus to come to the surface of this wound so we can get healthy, so that the world can be healthy again, right?
That's right. And I got obsessed with just trying to bring the fight to the enemy. And I got in several conflicts, firefights and things like that, but it wasn't anything where I could really just smash, right? And so finally, after many opportunities and several different missions, I got the mission of a lifetime. And that mission was to the Korengal Valley. The Air Force Times published that.
Where's that at? Where's
Korengal Valley is in Afghanistan on the east side. It's on the outskirts of Jalalabad.
So towards Pakistan way?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it was a pretty big mission. It was to extract Army soldiers from the combat outpost there. It was just such a deadly place, and it was just a place that strategically the United States felt that it was best if we weren't there any longer. So with that being said, I inserted with a couple special forces teams, Afghani commandos, even General McChrystal, the great General McChrystal was there, just to make a statement that we were extracting by choice, that strategically it was just not advantageous for the United States to no longer be there.
So this is not a surrender.
That's correct. It was not a surrender.
I wanted to ask that of you intentionally.
Exactly.
This is not a surrender.
That's right.
This is a reappointment of resources for a better use.
Exactly. It was just more advantageous to be in other places for the United States. And so with that being said, going in there, I had a couple combat controllers. I had just the best warriors with me. And as soon as we landed on the ground, it was on like Donkey Kong. I mean, literally, the Taliban were just waiting for us. And RPGs, machine gun positions, everything. When we were coming in, they immediately started attacking us. But we were very much prepared. I had multiple aircraft overhead, and we prosecuted all the targets. And as soon as we did that, it silenced the valley just for a moment. And then we landed on the ground, we positioned ourselves, and we started conducting the disruption operations. And just to keep the enemy at bay as we were slowly extracting our Army soldiers out who'd just been, they were just fighting every day for their lives. So if you've ever seen the film Restrepo, those were the guys that that our team came in to go ahead and extract out. So with that being said, all of a sudden, after General McChrystal departed, literally, it took about 24 hours for the Taliban to conduct an assault that would really make an impact against the Korangal outpost. And so that's when, for 72 hours, I was controlling aircraft without not a moment's of sleep. 72 hours, we were fighting, we were dropping several munitions. Literally every aircraft that flew over, I would Winchester. Winchester simply means every munition on that aircraft, whether it was F-15, AC-130 gunships, just anything that was out there, we were dropping everything. And I controlled the majority of all of the aircraft and the munitions, just prosecuting multiple targets, even to the point where we were dropping within basically danger close. And danger close was basically around 100 meters.
Unbelievable.
And so I was just really praying throughout that whole time. And so you asked about God capturing my attention, like when exactly is it that I became serious? You know, they say that there are no atheists in foxholes, right? Well, I would say there's no weak Christians in combat. You know, a lot of times we go and we find ourselves in circumstances beyond our control. And here's the deal. It was just really heavy. And it was a great burden on my heart. And even to the point where, personally, I didn't care if I died. You know, we're all warriors. We're all meant to live for a cause. And many of us sign on the bottom line to die for a cause.
If you have the privilege to die for a cause.
Absolutely. And as our boys and as we were just fighting and bullets were whizzing past our heads and RPGs were exploding all over the place. And I'll tell you, the enemy had the advantage. I mean, they were overhead. They were just shooting down on a lot of our guys. And I was just thinking, man, how many casualties are we going to actually take? Because at that point in time, over 44 Americans their lives have already been taken. And we're talking about the elite special operations operators and Army soldiers. And at the end of the day, I just didn't want any of my men to go down. So it was just a chaotic experience. And I'll tell you, so there was that moment that I had with God where basically I was thinking, you know what, the probability of dying in this valley is high.
Really high.
And the probability of my guys dying in the valley is high. And so I just kind of made a deal with God. Not that God makes deals with man.
Right, he makes no deals.
He makes no deals, but he understands our weaknesses. He understands our finitude, our minds, you know.
And you are now crying out to God in whatever terms, and I love this because they're reality. People need to be reminded that today we see people accepting Christ and going through almost a program like it's something like out of a mold. But yet when we look at the thief at the cross, he simply said, Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. That's not good enough for today's modern day evangelism crusades, is it? But you, in like passion, you call out to the Lord on the battlefield.
Absolutely.
And he's there.
He is there. And throughout that whole process, God has always been there. And throughout that whole process, in every conflict, he was there. He was there when I made bad decisions. He was there when I was making good decisions. But I'll tell you this much, that he loved me so much that he allowed me to get in to find myself in one of the deadliest places in all of the world.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest with you, when I cried out to God, it came from the very depths of my
I
soul,
bet.
down to the very core, the very essence of who I am.
Yeah, I bet.
And I just simply said, God, I know as a fact that if you were to preserve me, if nothing happened to me, if nothing happened to my guys, and I don't mean like getting shrapneled or even shot or even get torn up, because as I was moving from one fighting position to another, I tore my IT band, prosecuting targets. I tore my ankle. I had to get surgery, get a tendon removed. I mean, I was out there and I was fighting hard, and my guys were fighting hard, and they were putting their lives on the line. And I'll tell you, so I said, God, if you keep our boys safe, and if you bring them all home, I will know without a shadow of a doubt. Jack, listen to me when I say this, and I mean this with conviction. I knew without a shadow of a doubt that if we all came home, it was by divine providence, that it was by God's divine hand. And I said, if I'm out of here and you bring my boys home, I will serve you the rest of my life. And I meant it. And so since that point, that was the turning point. That was the turning point. Yeah.
And God in His grace heard that.
Absolutely, very much. And so from that time, now I'll tell you, it wasn't like I got home and all of a sudden I was a super Christian.
Right.
A lot of people go, man, how is it that you're so on fire for God? Why are you so passionate with God? What happened was God started doing a work in me, and it took like literally like a whole year for His product to be complete.
Well, and later we'll get to one of the reasons why we're talking.
Yeah.
But you, even with that said, you brought home like everyone that's serving for our freedom and liberty. You brought home a lot of baggage in your heart and your mind.
Absolutely.
As well.
Absolutely. And what happened was, I didn't realize at the time, and a lot of our servicemen and women don't really realize when they're going through PTSD. They don't realize when the scars of war, the implications of combat, they don't realize it until it gets bad. That's just my personal experience. And a lot of times they're in denial. And I came home with a lot of violence in my heart.
Of course.
I came home with a lot of violence, and I brought it to my home, and I was a terrible husband. I'm going to be honest with you. I tell everybody that's a part of my testimony. I was a terrible husband. I was hanging out with the boys, and I was doing stuff that literally grieved God's heart. At the end of the day, I didn't realize those things, but God started revealing certain sins in my life. And the fact of the matter is, I was doing a lot of bad stuff that was dishonorable to my relationship with God.
All the while knowing who Jesus is.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Because people need to hear that.
Absolutely. And so people go, well, what am I supposed to do? I'll tell you what I think you should do. I'm going to tell you what I did, and I'm going to ask you to bring that before the throne. And what I did simply was this, is I went to the Lord and I said, man, God, I have these violent rages, and I destroy stuff, and I'm disrespectful, and the things that come out of my mouth is unbelievable. I drink too much. I was drinking every day, Jack. And I was doing a lot of stuff that would get me in a lot of trouble. So the fact of the matter is that I asked God, and I was getting a divorce. In 2010, I was getting a divorce. My wife and I, we were going to split up because I was a jerk, and she deserved better. And that's just a fact, okay? Yeah. And so I brought it before the Lord. I said, I'm depressed. I'm an alcoholic. I got major issues. I'm going on black rage here, where you black out and you just start destroying everything. I've got major issues. And I said, what am I supposed to do about my marriage? What am I supposed to do about my career? What am I supposed to do? And I just felt God saying this, Damon, don't you worry about your marriage. Don't worry about your career. Don't you worry about anything else that's going on. What I want is what I've always wanted. I want you.
That's right.
I want you to come to me.
That's right.
And that's what happened. And He just pursued me, know about me, learn about me, connect with me, and let me do the healing. Let me do the work.
The world tells us something completely different. go take these 12-step programs. We'll show you how to handle that. And then when you have a 5-step program to make you happy, and then when you're done with that one, then we've got a 3-step program to make you rich. And the Bible says in Matthew 6:33, seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all these other things will be added to you. But we know that the answer is not wealth. We know that the answer is not a self-help program, because Hollywood is full of that. They're not happy. They're divorcing, constantly. There's the drugs, there's the violence. Every day it seems like we're reading about some Hollywood hero or starlet, drunk on Melrose Avenue. They're unhappy. They're not content with what the world offers. And so when you said that you strongly understood the Lord impressing upon your heart, seek me first. I mean, that's true maybe for our viewers right now. They would say, Damon, that's exactly how Jesus got a hold of my life, is he said, come to me first. He told Matthew, he told those guys, come and follow me. Everything else fell in place. So your life continues, and now God's got your attention, you're moving on, and he's still going to work in you, as he's working in you now, working in me, but he's working. So where are we now?
So basically, I just started pursuing the Lord and just reading his word. I felt God speaking to me and saying, if you want to know me, then read my word.
Yeah,
if you want to know what your cause is, what your purpose is, read my word. And I told him, I said, I have no hope. He says, I am your hope.
That's right.
I said, God, I don't have a purpose. He says, I am your purpose.
I am
and
the I am.
These things I didn't understand initially, but as I was reading his word and as I was praying and I was really connecting, and I tell you, it was like hours in and hours out, just going before the throne, just connecting with God. And God slowly started healing me.
Yeah.
He was healing me, and he was caring for me, and he was piecing me back together. And he, like the Marine Corps, was building me up, but this time not just for a warrior for the battles that Uncle Sam calls me to, but a warrior for his kingdom. And so that was when I was starting to receive that armor of God. And I'll tell you that I was remembering, I was in Afghanistan, and I just was starting to think about all of the sin in my life again, and just thinking, because the enemy likes to use that as a weapon, shame, pain, regret, those kinds of things. But I clearly remember God saying to me, Damon, don't you focus on the irreparable past. Focus on the invincible future with my son, Jesus Christ.
That's him.
And when I heard that, it just resonated with me over and over and over again.
Well, like I said in the intro, freedom is not free. Freedom is costly. And Damon's been talking about how God intervened in his life and how God has been using him. And just keep that in mind. We just scratched the surface, obviously. So we're going to hold him over. We're going to get into a second program. And I want to encourage you to get a hold of someone that you know in the military, for example, or someone who's gone through trauma, because we're going to get more personal in this next segment. But here's a man, and a man of God, mind you, who has gone through a lot, who has seen a lot. And of course, for good reasons, he's sparing you from a lot of the graphics of what he's been exposed to. But how does someone go through some of the most horrific things that a human can observe and yet keep their eyes on God? Where is God in the midst of all these things? Well, on our next program that we'll hook up with Damon about, he's going to answer those things. And so we look forward to seeing you in our next program right here in Real Life. God bless you guys.